This is The Backstory with Omobola Stephen. It's a balanced, objective, unbiased and disruptive conversation on government and politics. We shine more light on what has not worked and what would make it work. And now, to the finest personable and engaging host extraordinaire, Omobola Stephen. Tune in.
Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We love having you here, and it's our mission to bring you all the latest and greatest tips, skills, and know-how to make you the best that you can be. We know that you have it in you, and we're going to show you how. Now, let's get started.
Good to have you on the Backstory with Omobola Stephen. I'm the host. On the Backstory with Omobola Stephen, we shine more light on what has not worked and what we make it work. We shine more light on government and politics topics and other subtopics like the environment, science and technology, and society and culture. Sharing disruptive mindset conversations that is literally going to transform the mindset of individuals and even the global world in general. Today, I have Soslan Temanson, who is a podcast host, and he also has interest in global issues. Hi, Soslan. Welcome to the Backstory.
Hi, how's it going? Thank you so much for having me on the show. I am so blessed that I can have an opportunity to come on here and share my story about fleeing communism and talk about the freedom, because freedom in America is being under attack, whether people like it or not. And it blows my mind why more and more people don't realize that. And all I can tell you is when people do realize the direction that America's heading at, by the time they notice, it's going to be too late. And that's the thing, like that. My goal is to try to bring awareness to that and say, no, we are already being under attack, whether through mandates, through all these forcible government institution programs. They're going to they're forcing us into it. And so we have to counteract and say no, say no to compliance.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to a great time with you, Soslan.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that with us. And now, going forward, Soslan, your payoff says, when you flee communism, you will fight for freedom. And now, what led you to this conclusion?
So I was born in Russia back in 1998. And in 2006, I was adopted by a family. And during the 8.5 years, it was literally the worst time of my life. We had rations that we had to follow by. It was a war-torn city because during that time it was when Georgia was being taken over by Russia, the country. When it was during that time, so our city was the brunt of the war. Number 3, it was also because we couldn't achieve the dreams that we had. So whatever dreams that we wanted to aspire, that can be achieved because we had high taxes, we had complete control. People weren't allowed to buy whatever houses they wanted, and everything was under tight restriction. So when I was adopted back in 2006, and I came to America, literally the first hot shower I ever taken was in America. That tells you something. Because back in Russia, we didn't have hot showers back in Russia. Well, our building didn't, at least, because we showered with the garden hose. And not only that, but we also had, along with showering with the garden hose, we had strict ration food. So it was interesting that when I came to America, I had to I would steal food because I would hoard food because I was afraid that was going to be my last meal, or what happens if the government would come after us and stuff and all that. But I was mistakenly wrong because of the freedoms that America had. And I was able to save up money, and I was able to work really hard and be surrounded by a wonderful family that, taught me valuable lessons and talked about how, there's freedoms that America has that other countries don't. And I got that realization. I got that picture right away. One of the interesting parts that in America that I found out in other countries you can't do is you can speak out on certain issues. You can speak out, and whether if you're uncomfortable about the situation or you are comfortable, you won't get persecuted, you won't get arrested. And if you especially speak out about your faith, you won't get in trouble. Unlike certain countries around the world, for instance, Russia, you speak out your faith about in Russia, you get arrested. That's why Russia is one of the biggest atheist countries in the world. And that's one thing that I'm truly blessed by. and that I can able to go on. I can do a podcast in America, and I can go to speak at. I can go to a church and not be afraid that the government is going to shut my church down or shut my family down, and all that, and or arrest me for speaking on certain issues. That's another big thing about freedom of speech that America has that other countries don't. Now, are other countries getting better at it? That's beg to differ, you know. So
Absolutely. Thanks for that. Now, I also
yeah,
like us to delve more into communism and freedom
yes.
more appropriately. What do you think Americans don't understand about freedom, General?
So the America is heading down the wrong path. Now, now you're probably going to stop me. You're probably going to think, okay, what do you mean by America's heading down the wrong path? Well, you realize that so many people have gotten so complacent in America, and not only complacent, but not only in America, but in England and through these countries that call themselves democracy. Now, I want to rephrase the word democracy. The term democracy has a bad connotation, whether you like it or not, because dictatorship countries, communist countries use the word democracy. Cuba uses democracy. Russia uses democracy. Ukraine uses democracy. All these other countries that are considered our enemies, they use the word democracy. But their rendition of democracy is no, we tell you what to do. We tell you where to go to school. We tell you what to buy, at what price, and where you can farm, where you can't, and where you can live. And we tell you how big your house can be. And we can tell you whether if you can have a gas stove or not, give or take. And now that, but we also tell you whether if you can invest in certain money, and we also get to tell you how much we're going to tax you. For instance, look at Chicago, for instance. They officially introduced a market literally sponsored by the people. And it's a special tax. Once again, more people in Chicago get taxed again. They're being taxed to only pay for other people that, I mean, don't job, or they're probably paying for people that are like that are capable of working. So the word democracy is used as a bad connotation. It's not a very good connotation to have. But constitutional republic is where we the people get to decide. We get to vote our elected officials. We get to vote our people in, and they listen to us. They listen to our concerns, and for instance, I can tell you, like look at COVID, for instance. COVID was a perfect example. So our elected officials, last time I checked, are not our doctors. But suddenly they became wizards, and they became like doctors of I don't know what. And they told us what to do, how we should mask up. They told us that we should get vaccinated. We had all these political figureheads doing that. Well, last time I checked, I mean, I went to my doctor. My doctor's like, well, you shouldn't mask up, and you shouldn't like get vaccinated because this is the vaccine. You don't need the vaccine. Or for instance, you don't need to wear masks because you're completely healthy. See, that went to my own doctor, but the fact that we had so many people listen to the government and now that get the vaccine, and that if you get the vaccine, you got paid $100. That is one big thing that's a big step in communism. Is that a lot of people like took steps in that, say, oh, you know what, communism? Oh, I get $100 from the government. Absolutely. Where do I sign up on? And other states did it too, and that's very concerning and very that is one step closer to communism. And how this works is that in order for people to believe in communism, you have to believe in socialism. And the moment that you believe in socialism is the moment that you can like inch your way closer to communism. And that's where it all starts off. And in order to believe socialism, you have to say we have to save this country for democracy. But a lot of people don't really know what democracy actually really means. Adolf Hitler stated democracy multiple times, and look what happened. You know, I mean, you're telling me that's a democracy that I want to live in? Absolutely not. And that's not a free country. But going back to the freedom is a lot different than the word democracy. To me, freedom means being able to step out my door, going to the college I want, going to the doctors I want. That's the word freedom. And now that, but freedom also means that I can spend the money that I wanted to. I work hard for it. Number one. Number two, I invest in the money that I make, and if it works, it doesn't. If it does, then so be it. Number three, a part of freedom is that we had men and women that have died for this country, and now that, but we've also had people that like fought for this country. Like look at Paul Revere was one person that fought for this, that pretty much started the whole plan. And that's number three. Number four, freedom also has to deal with going about doing whatever religion you would like to have and believe in what you want to believe in, and not having the government going after you and persecuting you, and you practicing your faith in secret quiet because you're afraid to get arrested. Or for instance, you getting canceled because you are passionate about God, or you're passionate about the belief, but other people around you are not, and then they report you to your HR and all that. That's not freedom. So those are two big distinctions that I'm finding out, especially in my almost 25 years of life, that we cannot be settling down with the word democracy and say, well, vote as your democracy counts on it. That's a very dangerous world that America's heading on, and now that other countries that are trying to become constitutional republic are also heading on. And before we continue on to the next question, when you have immigrants that state, I've crossed over hundreds of immigrants before. When you have immigrants that state that it's not good that countries follow one democracy, I would rather listen to an immigrant that's fled Cuba, that's fled North Korea, that's fled Russia, that's fled China, that's fled other countries that have the democracy kind of a government statutorship, because they know what it's like. And when they say that America's heading down the wrong route, they're times farther, they're right on point. And that's why I state that we need to preserve our freedoms before it's completely lost.
All right. Soslan, still going forward here. Why do you think it is important to fight for America? Why also trust in God?
So it's important to fight for. So it's a question. Why is it important to fight for America and also trust in God?
Sure.
Okay. So
that's
the reason
your campaign.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes. So it is very vital to. It is very vital to fight for our America, because a lot of people don't realize, but our country is founded upon Judeo-Christian values. Our country is founded upon values that were Christian standpoint, and now it's becoming distorted. Now it's becoming twisted, and a lot of things are being changed. And it's interesting how we look at it. And a lot of our founding fathers were Christians, and that's why they based off their faith and their belief off the Constitution, because it was based off of the Bible that they've read, which was off the Holy Bible. And if you're in the, and a lot of them were Catholics. And if you take a deeper look at belief and stuff, that is a country that we should be following. But there's no way that we're going on that path. And so, one thing that I push for people is, I'm like, you know what? If you don't believe in God, if you don't trust God, how do you know between what is right and wrong? What do I mean by that? When you know the difference between what is right and wrong, we wouldn't be having a distorted nation. We wouldn't be having people going like marrying dogs or marrying trees because you want to, because you feel like it. That's called bestiality, and that's called grotesque, and it goes beyond the brokenness of this world. Or another thing is, if you truly love God and if you trust God, you wouldn't be going after minors. We wouldn't be having a new letter added to the LGBTQ people called adults attracted to minors. That's a new set of people. That's that because they think that's important, that they matter too. Well, if you read the Bible and if you read what it says about it in the New Testament, you're probably wondering, okay, well, that's gross. But a lot of people don't read that.
Right. Thank you so much, Soslan Temanson, for sharing your thoughts on freedom and also on communism. I would like us to talk about communism also. How does it affect human rights?
Communism affects human rights by the ability for a person not to achieve what they want to. What do I mean by that? When I lived in a communist country, Russia, the human rights out there is non-existent. People are not looking out for your best well-being. The human rights in a communist kind of a country, that doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is how can I better myself and myself only. It's like one man for himself. If you're going to suffer, oh well. There's other people that are going to take your spot. The human rights aspect of it is, let me worry about you first. Let me worry about you before worrying about me. Because if I worry about myself, that's being self-centeredness and being self-arrogant. And that's why and in a communist country, there's no human rights are non-existent. We look at Cuba and we also look at North Korea. Do you honestly think that North Korea has any human rights? Absolutely not. And also China. Do you think China has any human rights as well? Absolutely not either. So I think it's important that we push for having human rights in those kind of countries. But before that, we have to go after their government and what their people have been brainwashed into thinking that communism is good and that it's good to have the government to control everything. And it's good for the government to tell you, you're going to support this campaign or else. You're going to support this group of people or else. And that's not human rights.
Right. So what do you think are the most pressing world problems and how can we solve them?
So I would have to say it would have to be Ukraine. Our involvement, of course, America's involvement in Ukraine, and the fact that Ukraine keeps on asking other countries for money and other assets when they've already are sitting on billions of dollars of cash and they're sitting on billions of dollars of weaponry, but nothing is happening. That's number one. Number two, it also have to be the economics wise, the job and the market aspect of it. The markets across America are tumbling, and because of poor decision making, because of people that don't like freedom, people that don't like having we the people just to decide how we should spend our money. They don't like that. So we have certain people, such as the current president, that's got no faith and that he has people thinking for himself, making poor decisions and causing other ripple effects across the world. For instance, the drilling of oil. Oil has gone up astronomically, not only in America, but across the world. And if other countries parted and did their fair share of drilling, if Saudi Arabia did their fair share, if England and if Norway, Germany, and all these other countries that have oil reserves, oil pockets underneath their ground, but they're too more worried about appeasing to a small minority, we wouldn't be having this. We would be having the economical problems we are already having. And now that, but the protection of border security across all the countries, not just only America, not just only England, not only just countries in Africa, but countries in the Middle East, countries in China, and all that. The border security is completely gone cattywampus. We're allowing people in. England is allowing people in, whoever they want, and they're not doing their protection. They're not doing the right protocol. They're not protecting them anything else. And you also have France doing the same thing. Borders are wide open in France. Germany is letting in Muslims and letting in terrorists without proper vetting. And United States doing the same thing. Mexico is also having a horrible problem in Guatemala. You look at the border in Mexico. So the border issue is also a big thing that's also crippling other countries, because if you don't tighten up your border, but the only border that doesn't have a problem, once again, is Ukraine and North Korea. Because those two are the biggest countries that we've already liquidated all of our assets in, and now that, but they're also countries that are in a current war zone, well, supposedly. So those are the three things: the economics, the oil, and the border security.
Absolutely. Soslan, do you have any exciting news you'd like to share with my audience, or any projects that you have in the pipeline?
Yes. So I am going to interview. So my podcast, The Sos Report. I started a podcast called The Sos Report. It is officially shared in 68 different countries, and we are definitely heading the right direction. in spreading the good news about God and informing and educating people. So we have wonderful guests coming up in the near future. So you do not want to miss that. And as well as you're more than welcome to follow. I've also gotten a bigger following on TikTok, Soslan76 on TikTok, also on Instagram and Facebook, and even like wherever social media platforms are, I'm on there pushing out exciting content, and that's where you can stay up to date on my life and my podcast and my message about protecting freedom.
Absolutely. Wish you best of luck in the projects that you have, Soslan. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Thank you so much. And I want to say thank you so much for allowing me to come on your show. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I appreciate your own time also. Do you have any parting words you'd like to share?
So as we part ways, in order to fight for freedom, it doesn't take an army and it doesn't take a group. It only takes one person to cause a ripple effect. And that one person can be you, or it can be somebody else, it could be your family member. All we have to do is make sure that we encourage each other along the way, because we are on the path that God has set for us. Each and every single one of us are on a path. And the coolest thing is that when we cross that finish line and we get to run into Jesus' arms, he's going to say to us, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." And that's my parting words.
Thanks for the motivation, Soslan Temanson. I really appreciate your time and your thoughts on today's show, talking about communism and also on freedom. Wish you best of luck once again. If you'd like to catch up with any missed episodes of The Backstory with Omobola Stephen, you can do so on any cross-promotion platforms or any podcast distribution platforms you bump into online. And do have a great time listening to experts share their thoughts on topics or subjects under government and politics. Now, I need you to stay safe. I talk to you soon.